They told us it was climate action. They said this was a response to the climate emergency. Well, if you make drivers drive longer ways round, if you make delivery drivers, instead of going here, and you say go here, come out, go round, go there, come out, go around, they drive further. They drive more vehicle miles, which means more fuel burn, which means more CO2 going into the air, which means, I'm afraid that's not climate action. Yeah? They lied. They told us this was a COVID emergency response. The people suffering the most from COVID are the poor, black, Asian, minority ethnic communities. We know twice as likely, 3 times as likely to be infected, 2 to 3 times more likely to die. This is connected to air pollution. So your highest levels of air pollution, they've showed, means higher rates of COVID infection, higher rates of death from COVID. So the idea that you have a scheme that increases air pollution on the main roads, increases air pollution for the very people who are suffering the most, who are most likely to die, that is not a COVID emergency response. Now, I'm going to go back a little while. I'm going to go back to 4.5 years ago when I first kind of uncovered a bit about air pollution. I was on the South Circular Road with my son at a bus stop, and this massive articulated lorry came and parked next to the bus stop because it got stopped by the traffic lights. And my son was like, "Oh my God, Daddy," because he's like 2.5 years old, biggest thing I've ever seen. But the tyres were like same size as he was. The exhaust pipe was about that close to his face. And suddenly you realise that he's breathing something and I don't know what it is. So I started to investigate and I found out that the diesel vehicle exhaust is carcinogenic group 1 like tobacco smoke. I'm not sure if you know that. Carcinogenic group 1 like tobacco smoke. It increases the risk of cancer, it stunts children's lung growth. I kept on reading, realised that if you breathe in this stuff on a long-term basis, particularly for children, it increases your risk of asthma. We've got 1.1 million children in the UK with asthma, and 1/4 of that is due to air pollution. Increases the risk of pneumonia, bronchitis for adults, increases the risk of heart attack, stroke, 10% more likely to die of cancer. It's amazing how bad this is and how quiet this has been kept from us. Part of the reason for that is obviously the Exchequer earns around £28 billion a year from fuel sales, and this includes from the pump, and obviously if you start tackling and telling people to switch off engine, then you reduce your income. So we'll touch on that a bit later. But going through this whole process, I thought, well, what can we do to protect our children? And a simple one was, I looked at the doctors and the professors, and they said that our greatest air pollution exposure is when we are on busy roads, when we are on main roads. That's our greatest exposure. And for children, it's during the school run. And you think to yourself, well, hang on a second. Yeah, you're right. Children walking to school, cycling to school, scoot to the school on these main roads. Well, that's the worst time in the morning, isn't it? 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock, going off to nursery as well, 9:30. This is a massive time of pollution. So King's College London then did some research, and they bought these little backpacks on the kids' backs and sent 250 off, monitored it, and they showed air pollution is highest on the main roads, twice as high as on the side roads. It's higher when you're walking the main roads than it is if you're in a bus or even if you're in a car. So again, we know where the biggest exposure is for our children. It's on the main roads. So we look and go, and we think to ourselves, hang on a second, going back to what we said. If you're looking to reduce air pollution exposure for those most at risk, why would you close side roads and push the traffic onto main roads? Yeah? This is where it's coming from. This is why we know it's a lie. So I was trying to work my mind out. If this isn't a COVID solution, if this isn't reducing air pollution exposure for the children most at risk, if this isn't reducing air pollution for the adults most at risk, and remember, it's not just people who live on these main roads. Anybody who is travelling on these main roads, even in cars, if you're stuck in traffic and the exhaust from the vehicle in front is getting into your car, these are not airtight, just in case you think they are. You don't have these HEPA filters inside your car, so you're breathing this and your children are breathing this as well. So everyone in congested traffic, and it's gung 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 gung, yeah, that stuff's coming into the car and coming in from the car in front as well, from the exhaust pipe. So that's poisonous, we know that. If you work on a main road, if you're in a shop on a main road, any of the shops, any of the customers, any of the members of staff, if you're shopping, you're also breathing this dirty air. Then you think around cyclists. I'm a cyclist too. This does not help me. I take the straight route, the most direct route. These are on the main roads. I'm breathing more pollution on the main roads than ever before, and it's also more dangerous because you've got these frustrated drivers who are moving around and trying to... This is not for the benefit of cyclists. And yet, one of the biggest people pushing this forward is the London Cycling Campaign. Now, we've got to be very clear. This is a niche charity, a very specific niche charity who do not represent London. They do not represent London cyclists. Yeah, they've got their own little agenda of what they're trying to do. Now, London Cycling Campaign and Living Streets. This is really interesting because they've been trying to bring in low traffic neighbourhoods for years and years, about 5-6 years, and probably if you keep on looking back you'll find more examples of where they were under different guises and different names. The idea in their strategy is simply to make side roads nicer. That's it. It's not about air pollution, it's not about COVID, it's not about any of these things. They already decided that's what they wanted to do. Now, I understand that, because yes, it's nice to make side roads a little bit nicer. It's nice to make all roads a little bit nicer. And there are ways to do that. But when you take away, or when you follow a scheme that actually simply moves traffic and displaces it to other areas, then you're just as bad as, you know, the people who say, okay, we're going to take this plastic, we're going to send it across to Asia, we're going to burn it over there, so those children are poisoned, those people are poisoned, we're not going to take it ourselves. It's the same thing going on here. Yeah? It's an environmental injustice. There are people that live and breathe on those main roads.
Dulwich Common, and my asthma has got so bad that I've had 2 attacks, whereas I've never had an attack before.
Yep.
That's concrete.
Yep.
GPs will tell them.
And we're hearing this story all over London and everywhere else there are LTNs. It's simply the fact that if you increase it, let me just put this, the doctors know and the professors know that if they can reduce air pollution just by like 1 microgram per cubic meter, every time they do that, they save lives. They save lives. But what they don't talk about is if you increase it, what happens then? You cause more deaths. You increase the likelihood that someone will have a premature death. You increase the likelihood that a child will have their lungs stunted. And when you have stunted lung growth, this has a massive impact on the quality of their life and the length of their life. It's just a reality. Now, just to finish it, really what I'm saying is there are these niche charities like Living Streets, like London Cycling Campaign. They have their own agenda. Their agenda is simply to make side roads nicer.
Public funding as well.
They're public funded. I mean, it's crazy. These are charities, and we've got public funding from our councils. The Mayor for London is also supporting them through Street Sweep. We've got Boris Johnson, and we all trust Boris Johnson to be doing the right thing. You know, let's be clear with Boris. He's spending 27 billion on new roads. 27 billion on new roads, and when you have new roads, that induces demand for more cars. Yeah, so he knows exactly what he's doing. On this side over here, he's saying, okay, tell you what, the people most likely to own a car live on side roads. Yeah, they're most responsible for the pollution because of the medium and the long journeys they make. So what we're going to do is say to them, well, if you can not do your really short journeys, which are a tiny percentage of the vehicle miles driven, a tiny percentage of the fuel burn, a tiny percentage of the emissions, don't do those, but you can still keep your car, you can still have your car, you can still park it on your road, you can still drive it on the other roads and pollute everybody else, but you'll have a nicer street. How does that sound to you?
Criminal!
Right, but they're thinking, well, yeah, all right, Boris, I'll take that. And Boris is like, great. Now, car manufacturers, these people will still buy cars. They will still keep on buying cars, so therefore that's okay with you. Yes, RAC says, yes, we support low traffic neighbourhoods. Fuel companies, these people will still buy fuel. They will still drive the medium and long journeys. And because we've caused more congestion on the main roads, they're going to be sitting in traffic for longer, they're going to burn more fuel. How does that sound to you? Fuel companies are like, great. This is the reality, folks. This has all been planned, and they're sitting in their room and they're trying to chop it all up, and they're saying to themselves, okay, how can we please the car manufacturers? Do this, low traffic neighbourhoods. How can we please the cyclists? Do this, because London Cycling Campaign are happy. How can we Living Streets? Fine, because we make the side roads nicer. So everybody's like tick, 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 unless You live, shop, walk, scoot, cycle, learn and play on a main road, on a community road. Let me just clear that. This isn't about arterial roads and boundary roads and distributed roads. These are community roads. These are our high streets. These are where our nurseries are. These are where our care homes are, our GPs, our hospitals, our schools. These are where we live and breathe. And they're increasing the air pollution exposure for us. So, I did come to Dulwich. This is the third time I've been asked to speak. The first time, I went to Southwark Council, they asked me to a meeting, and I sat there and I listened to a 20-minute speech, 20-minute speech, 20-minute speech, 20-minute speech, and when it came to my time to speak, and I was with another resident from Dulwich, and we got there, sat at the table, I said, I'm really sorry, but we've only got 2 minutes left. 2 minutes left to share between us. And we did the best we could do in the 60 seconds we had. Spoke really, really, really quickly, like that. And they said, thank you very much for coming. It was really delightful, thank you very much. Then on the side, they said to us, you know what, we've got a scrutiny committee, we want you to come along to the scrutiny committee. We want you to come, and we actually want you to become part of that committee. Because we need to have that balance, we need to have this voice. And I thought, fantastic, this is brilliant news, fantastic. Then on Twitter, you could suddenly, someone leaked this, and they were like, why are you asking this guy to come on, why are you asking this guy to, why are you allowing this guy to come and talk at your council meeting? Yeah? London Cycling Campaign. Suddenly, the invitation suddenly started withdrawing. I'm like, when would you like me to speak? Withdraw. When would you like me to speak? Withdraw. In the end, they went silent, and I was not invited to speak. There is something they do not want to hear. Yeah? They don't want to hear about this. Not from me, at least. This is the third time here today, and I just want to thank everybody here for firstly coming out. I know it was raining a while ago, we've got beautiful sunshine now, and there's so many of you. I'm going to ask the person, Sylvie, can you just pan round just to show, actually, if you bring me the thing, I just want to make sure I capture this, because this is massive. What a fantastic turnout. Let's have a look at you guys. Hey, there we go. Wave those up. Fantastic.